Yeah, I see me. Hey, everybody. How are we doing today?
I'm doing okay. I don't know about anybody else yet.
Yeah, gotta wait for people to show up. One person showed up. Of course, that could be you. Nope, it's Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Number one, first. No one else is here yet to say hi back. And how are you doing this week? Summer says hi. Hi, Summer. Lauren says hi. Hi, Lauren. Ruth says she's doing good. All right. We got our tree taken down yesterday, and it was quite an experience to actually watch these people do their job and how much equipment and experience and skill it takes to safely remove a tree from the backyard of someone who's in a residential neighborhood. So that was interesting. We watched the whole thing pretty much. Wanted to be there to witness the tree and felt very emotional about the whole thing, but it was a danger to the house, and unfortunately, people didn't take care of it the right way to start with, and it was suffering. Yeah, but it went. So Ian says, Blessed be, please feel comfortable commenting and asking questions. Aaron says, hello. Hi, Aaron. How are you doing? We're having like a heat wave over here, which is interesting. Not uncommon for October for our area, but still warmer
Yeah, it's
than
very,
usual.
very summery.
Yeah, this is our quote unquote Indian summer. I don't think we're supposed to use that term anymore. It's probably inappropriate, but don't know what else to call it. I'm up to ideas.
Late summer.
Yes. A surprise summer? The fall summer surprise. That sounds good. We'll go with that. The fall summer surprise. I don't know what we want to talk about today. There is an eclipse coming next Saturday, so that means that we're in the last waning gibbous, I guess, at the moment of the moon. Aaron says, I have fall colors right now, very pretty. It was in the 70s yesterday. Yes. And I think in the last couple of days, we've actually gotten close to 80 or up into the 80s a couple of times, which was quite a surprise for our coastal community. And it's October. Yay. Here we come. And we're in the line of the eclipse next Saturday. We're hoping that it's not cloudy in the morning. According to the weather app, it's supposed to be cloudy, but we'll see what happens in reality because they don't know everything on the weather app. They're not always accurate. So, what do you all want to talk about today? What kind of stories do you want to like drag out of me? I always find that interesting what I end up talking about. I'm always surprised.
Yeah, I don't know how I got set with this setting, but it doesn't appear I can basically do anything about changing any of it.
Well, not the day we're doing the show. We have to do that in the middle of the week sometime when we're sitting in our living room, I guess, and figure it
Well,
out.
it looks like I opened it up and yeah,
No, there's probably something I can do. Maybe. Missions. They keep changing everything on us. So what are y'all up to? What you doing? I did a distance Reiki session this morning on somebody, and I used my Venusian wand and a piece of selenite for it, and it was pretty good from my end anyway. I always find it interesting if my focus is up or not. Rita says, hi all. Hi, Rita. Everybody's going to be thinking about questions at the same time, and they'll all come in at once. Usually that's the way it happens. Whoops.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We can just sit here and stare at each other.
I was looking, I think it almost looks like it's just something they did. You know, that either of us can change that, but it used to show up with my name.
I know, frustrating. Well, I was doing some experiments with rocks, so that was fun. Sundrop says, hi everyone, my mom and I have the C virus. I feel good to participate. This is no joke. It's hit our home. I'm so sorry. That is no fun. My daughter had it, and she wasn't very happy about that. So, it's no fun. Rita says, we like to keep you guys busy. Yes. Ruth says, the kale book I got is good. You have a book about kale? Well, good. Kale is not something I know much about. I don't use kale.
Oh, that's weird.
So I guess we should send Sundrop and her mom some energy, and you know, help her out a little bit. Ruth says kale. Yeah, that's what it said. Collie, I'm like, alrighty, that sounds more on topic. Like kale. Yes. Oh, autocorrect. It doesn't like goddess names, apparently. Sundrop says, thank you for healing energy. You're welcome. Just send you what we can and focus on you a little bit there. So, what's the name of the Kali book you got? And hopefully it doesn't call it a kale book again.
Well, I can't imagine the book on kale would be all that exciting. It's like, what can you say about it?
Well, that's why I said.
It could be a recipe book for cooking nothing but kale.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking it was.
10,000 recipes.
That include kale. I'm like, okay, for all the kale lovers out there. No. Actually, noticed my Kali book the other day when we were picking up all of our books and getting them into the bookcases in preparation for the roof to get done. But, yeah. Have you started reading it? And you said it's good. So what is it called? Maybe it's one I have, or maybe it's one I haven't heard of, and you can get a recommendation. Because Kali was one of my earlier goddesses. Well, that was in the 80s, I guess. Mid-80s was when I got introduced into Kali on a serious level. Although I think when my daughter was born, I started connecting with her when I was gardening. My daughter was born in 75, but I just didn't realize.
Practice rituals, that sounds interesting.
It does sound interesting. Sorry guys, I blew my nose. Someone said I'm not allowed to do that because it's too loud. But it needed to be done. Allergies. Yeah, I have sometimes gotten books I thought were going to be interesting, and then they turn out to be extremely huge disappointment. So it's always good to know when something turns out to be good. So, awesome. The name of the book is Secret Practices and Rituals of Kali. A Kali statue that I have was purchased by my son's best friend when he went to India and then brought back to Santa Cruz where I was living at the time. And so that's how I got first that statue. because they asked me if there was anything from India I wanted, and the only thing I could think of was a statue of Kali, not one that you just buy off the shelf, like on the internet. Of course, we didn't have internet much back then, but still, I thought it would mean more to me if someone saw it in person and bought it and brought it back. So that's how I got that statue, and I liked the fact that it happened that way. It's Tantric Kali. Tammy says, what's the piece next to the statue behind your right shoulder? This is my right shoulder. I think you might mean my left shoulder. Because behind me on my right side,
Got it.
This is
A peacock. Got Lano.
right shoulder. Okay, there is Aphrodite, and then there is that guy, Lano. You moved him.
Oh.
Are you talking about this guy? Picture. Oh, yes, there is a picture. Get the picture. Yeah, just a little picture I picked up at Goodwill, I think. I liked the color of it. And this is a water altar, so seemed to be a good thing to have a picture. So that's why that's there. I like to find things. What can I say? Stick him here. I can't reach that far back. Summer says, I've been watching for a while, but usually don't comment. I'm curious about how to figure out which deities are best for you to work with. Is there a specific ritual for this? I'm a beginner. I don't know if there is a specific, you can do rituals to try and get an idea of which god or goddess might be interested in you, doing a meditation kind of thing where you put the word out and ask. You can pay attention to what's going on in your life and see if there's signs from a specific deity that's been trying to connect with you, like if you see their symbols all the time. Or you can do research into the qualities and the mythologies behind different deities and see what you need in your life right now, because you don't have to work with one deity for the rest of your life kind of thing. It's not necessarily a relationship that goes on forever. And that's one of the things that I like about paganism, is that if you're in a crunch and you need a specific kind of skill set that you may not know much about, you can usually find a deity who has that skill set and then connect with their energy and maybe get some assistance when it comes to that. One of the practices we did early on was naming ourselves after a god or goddess for a period of time to kind of bring that energy into us. As a coven, everybody in the coven picked a god or goddess they wanted to connect with, and then those were our coven names for a period of time. So yeah, there's no one way of doing it for sure, and I don't know that you can really make a big mistake in the attempts to do it. The gods and goddesses decide whether or not they're interested in working with you, regardless of your interest in them. So it's like a two-way street. And it's a relationship, not like a subservient kind of thing where you're doing stuff for them in exchange for them doing stuff for you. It's more of a friendship kind of dynamic. And Tammy said, no, I asked you about him before. And Sundrop says that large statue you picked up looks Hawaiian. It is.
Yes.
Fertility god.
Fertility god.
Laud says, hi everyone, glad to be here. Hi Laud. Sundrop says, so I can't do certain practices when I'm sick, like spell work, unless it's for healing. Is this true? Well, you don't have the energy available to do a lot of spell work when you're sick, which is one of the reasons for charging up objects.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that there's no prohibition or anything that says you can't. It's just that it's much harder because you're sick. Yeah.
Right, because you don't have that excessive energy to build up and to utilize. But that's one of the reasons for having objects that you charge up when you're feeling well, that then when you're not feeling well, you can draw upon that energy to do something that you need to get done, as well as healing and so forth. So, yeah. It's like a lot of these things get put into a verbal statement that makes it into a dogma, but this, like Ian says, it's not because there's a restriction for any reason to not do magic or spell work when you're sick. It's just lack of fuel. Like, you don't have it there, it's hard to do. And you need to focus on getting well yourself. That's the main focus when you're sick, is internalized you and health and getting back on your feet. I'm finally feeling better from all my falls. So, like, the month of September was kind of a write off as far as being able to accomplish much physically went. Taylor says, hello, everyone. Hi, Taylor. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of times being sick is an opportunity for you to just pay more attention to yourself. You can use it as an opportunity. That doesn't mean you have to get sick in order to pay attention to yourself. Remember, you can do that without getting sick. But sometimes that seems to be the only opportunity that certain people have, is because they're always outwardly focused and they don't have the opportunity to inwardly focus. I know when my son got sick, he became very metaphysical when he was a kid. That's when all the questions about spirit world and death and all this other stuff would come out of him. And he would ask me all sorts of strange things when he wasn't feeling well. Made him quite pensive. So yeah, it's interesting. We're always in motion as far as our emotions and health and how we feel and stuff goes. And so that's part of the whole cycle of life and cycle of the season, cycle of the day. You're never one state or being for a long period of time, in my experience, anyway. Yeah, that must have been the wind.
Interesting.
Yes, that made an interesting noise on our roof. We'll be happy when our roof is replaced. That'll make us feel much more secure.
Hopefully that's happening.
Yes, I hope he gets to do it before he says he can, so that would be fantastic. Yeah, we shall see what happens. Oh, we had a funny thing happen. Um, Ian purchased some tweeters from China, and they took like a month to get here. And when they arrived here, they neglected to put an address on the box. They just sent it to our town. So it went to the main post office and said it was not deliverable. And I did my best to try and get a hold of the post office, but it wasn't happening because I could only get through to their 1-800 number, and they were less than helpful. Couldn't get through to a person at all. So I told Ian to go down to the post office now, otherwise they were sending it back to China. And he arrived at the post office while they were getting ready to put it back on the truck and send it back to China. So good timing on my part.
So I got him.
So he got him. I was like, wow. How often does that happen? Post office says more often than you would think. Yeah, and I'm like, okay. I thought never, so yeah, it happened once, and that's already more often than I would think that someone would mail you something without your address on it. Especially China.
Well, they did put the town on it, but
Thank goodness for that.
sent to Coos Bay, Coos Bay.
Yep. So good for paying attention to what was going on in the moment, and good for Ian for listening to me and doing what I told him to so he could get his stuff. It's like, yes. You have to be on all the time, paying attention. Everyone getting ready for Samhain? Figuring out what you're going to wear, costume-wise, doing ritual-wise, gathering.
Or not.
No, we're not. We never get anyone to our door. Tara Lynn says, hi everyone, glad to be here from Ontario. It's thanks. Is it Thanksgiving? Is that what you mean? It's thanks? Because I know the Canadian Thanksgiving is in October, and I didn't look it up and wasn't keeping track. Yes, it's Thanksgiving here. Okay. So happy Thanksgiving Canadian to you. And I always thought October made more sense for a harvest festival than November. Cold and rainy. Yeah, I understand it is getting, the whole top part of the United States is going through a cold spell coming down from the Arctic, going through Canada to get here. So yes, I would imagine. Yeah, when I researched Thanksgiving, I found out that it was it Roosevelt who changed it?
Was it?
Well, he was the one who changed it to November. Lincoln initially changed it from October to the beginning of November, and then I think Roosevelt changed it towards the end of November in order to generate more sales for Christmas. Yeah. Taylor says, would either one of your practice astrology? I think it's interesting, but I'm nervous to look into it more because of expectations of signs. Well, you have to remember that there's always that potential no matter what you're looking into, and to not take it too seriously, because if you believe everything you read about astrology, in one sense there's only 24 personalities out there, basically 12 positive, 12 negative. So you have to be a lot more into astrology to get more specifics, and it's a guidepost. It's not like a prophecy. It's more of an indication of the kinds of energies that were around when you came into the world and some of the influences that could affect you, but you don't necessarily have to allow them to.
Yeah, the phrase I read was they influence, but they don't coerce.
Right. Sundrop says, I don't know what else to ask. I'll think of something. Well, thank you for, you're sick. You don't have to, try and make sure we have questions. It's okay. Diane says, hi everyone. Glad I made it this week from England. Hi Diane. Thank you for joining us. We have a couple of people in England who drop by from time to time. And Taylor says, thank you both. You're welcome. It's like with everything else. I mean, dogma happens pretty quick. So we have to be on the alert for that and make sure we're not programming ourselves to a specific set of beliefs that may or may not hold any validity to them. Summer Lauren says, I have a 1-year-old girl and a 3-month-old boy, so we are going trick-or-treating. They're going to be a ladybug and the very hungry caterpillar.
Cool.
We also have a witch's ball in November. Well, that's wonderful. I know they have some witches' balls around the globe, and the one in Salem, of course, Massachusetts, is quite famous. I think Cabot started that one. And I've known several people from here who've gone to some of her witches' balls. I think there's other cities that have them now, too, which is kind of nice. But so your ladybug is going to be eaten by the very hungry caterpillar. Seems like a potentially dangerous match. But probably not, since 1 year and 3 months they won't get it. So yeah. I'm sure they'll be safe. It's just a funny, haha.
I don't know. Sounds cute to me.
Sounds cute.
Yeah.
My mother once dressed me as Aunt Jemima, which I'm sure is totally politically incorrect now, but at the time was not. I was born in 1950, and I think I was in the first or second grade when she dressed me as this. But she put so many pillows under my clothes that I became very unbalanced. And what I remember about that Halloween was falling down on my back in the neighborhood and not being able to get up without help. And this group of kids had to go with me and keep picking me up off the lawn of all these different houses, because I kept falling over and being stuck on my back. And then the itchiness of the stuff she put on my face, which I hated. That was about the extent of my awareness of what was going on at that point. So, Sophia says, hello from Athens, Greece. Finally and happily, I am able to watch a live after a long time. Good to see you live. Hi, Sophia. Thank you for coming. Scott Brown says, any recommendations on how to connect with your guides and to figure out who they are? Meditate. I mean, really, the best way to connect with them is by meditating and connecting with yourself and clearing yourself out and getting to know your own thoughts and your own energy and your own feelings and so forth, so that then you can start to recognize when other happens. Because it's a subtle difference in the beginning, especially. So you may be getting messages from your guides and not know it. You may think of it as your own internal voice and your own intuition, which it could be. But if you really want to open up those lines of communication, you need to get to know yourself and do the internal work to clear out your own blockages and so forth, so that then when it does happen, it becomes obvious. It's something from outside of you coming in to give you information or a warning or encouragement or whatever it might be. So that's really, there's no simple chant you can do in order to make it happen. It's work of being alive and becoming more responsible for your own spiritual path, which is
generally your guides will make themselves known to you as soon as they can, which means as soon as you're ready or have the abilities to perceive them.
Right, which is why you do the work on yourself, because they meet us more than halfway. But if we're not doing the work in order to be able to perceive them, there's only so much they can do. That's my recommendation at any rate. And you can have more than one kind. I have over the years met a number of different spirit beings that have acted as like a spirit guide for one thing or another. Sometimes intermittently, like Black Eagle, the Native American from southern Saskatchewan area from the medicine wheel that I met. He appears every so often and just kind of hangs out and says hi and whatnot. Yeah. And you can have spirit animal guides. So I have a few of those that are around at different times when I need them. Again, it's like not constant. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to individuate effectively and become my own person. I'd be running around trying to figure out what they all wanted me to do all the time.
Yeah, there are a lot of kind of guides. I have some. I thought my animal guides were basically Native American, but they seem to relate to my higher guardian spirit as lower manifestations of my higher guardian spirit. So you have to consider there are all kinds of guides and gurus and things that can help you too. So you don't want to limit yourself much by preconceived notions of having to be type or like angelic or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was begging for teachers, like when is my teacher going to come? I kept seeing pictures of my children. And I'm like, no, no, I don't want them as teachers. I can't talk to them. They don't speak English hardly at all yet. I want a teacher who can I talk to. And they kept showing me my children. So yeah, sometimes you don't like the messages and you kind of try and reject them. But it turns out that they're right. So Scott says, thank you very much. You're welcome. Odin Rules says, hail Siofra. Hi, Odin. Sundrup says, do you have any witchy movies to recommend besides the Crazy? I think that's what that says. It's under that heart, so I can't see it.
Craft.
The Craft. Oh, besides the Craft. Oh, let me think. Yeah, because there's a lot of good ones out there. There's good series out there nowadays that I found really cool, like
Fort Salem. That's a series, though.
Fort Salem was a series, and that was very interesting, and I liked it. We both liked that a lot. And it had some really good acting and interesting views on magic and power and so forth. Just different, very different. There was
Yeah, not necessarily accurate, but it was a fun show.
right.
Yeah.
Then there was the one that was from England that had the vampire and the witch that fell in love who weren't supposed to. What was the name of that series? We haven't watched it in a while. It's
Being
been
Human?
no.
No, that wasn't the Vampire and Witch. That was
No, this was the newer one with the guy, the vampire and the witch didn't know she was a powerful witch and traveled through time and had to learn how to weave knots and
Yeah,
magic and yeah, somebody else might think what the name of that is called. It's been a few years. Diane says Penny Dreadful. Nah, I didn't care for that one myself personally. There was a little bit too much horror influence in that one. I like the ones that are more story oriented and might have some scary components, but I don't like graphic horror in particular. I'll give it some thought. See if I can remember the name of that other series.
Yeah, it might take me a while. It seemed like it had the name of it dealt with alchemy to a certain extent, kind of.
Well, it had John Dee's character in it and
So
a bunch of other historical stuff that was interesting. Yeah, whoever wrote the books, the series it was based off, did a great job. It might come to me before the end of the show, but yeah, the craft annoyed me when I first saw it. Sundrop says, "Have you seen The Masked Magician? To me, he's scary." No, I haven't watched The Masked Magician. Sounds like a reality TV show like The Masked Singer that I never heard of. I don't know. But yeah, there is one that's just a delightful movie that I still have on my list on Netflix, or is it on Amazon? I'll have to look that up too, damn it. Sorry. These things don't come to me right off the top of my head.
yeah, you get the older you get. I find for myself, it's like it has to. The answer is there, but it just has to bubble up from farther below a whole accretion of stuff. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days for something to bubble to the surface.
Oh yeah. Those files folders get all smushed up together down there somewhere. Discovery Witches, yes, that's the
Yes,
series.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yes. We liked that. I knew some people who didn't like it, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Ian loved it.
Yeah.
We enjoyed watching it together. Sheila says, "Was it Discovery Witches?" Yes, it was. Odin says, "The Craft is a good witchcraft movie." Well, that depends. I didn't think it was a good witchcraft movie. It had some real stuff about witches in there, and then a whole bunch of made up stuff that was completely and totally unreasonable, and it gave a dark spin to witches, like almost all movies do, and kind of mixed devil worship and Satanism kind of thing in with the whole pot of evil, icky stuff that they were proposing. So I prefer them to keep it either one or the other and not mix the two together. That's kind of
Yeah. For what it's worth, I didn't like that one either from a witchcraft point of view. Actually, I just didn't like it basically. But I mean, it's kind of an interesting idea and stuff. And if the magic wasn't fictionalized at all, then it would just be kind of a boring story, So they have to fictionalize it some.
There was one real witch in that movie, and she was the woman who was in the shop, and I watched her using her power to charge up an object. I could see it happening on screen. So it was interesting in that sense, and a lot of people disagree with us, and that's okay. That's why there's different movies out there.
Yep.
Everyone has a different taste for things. I enjoyed Practical Magic too, even though I liked Practical Magic because it was about magical consequences, the things that happen when you do things without thinking through the consequences, and I thought they did a good job with that. But I thought the idea that any woman could be a witch by picking up a broom and just magically be in her power was ridiculous because I had to work really hard for mine. So, whatever.
That'd be nice. Maybe if you were a witch in 99 past lives, then it would just come natural and you just do it. But
Odin Rule says, "Well, for me, it showed me the ego side of people in a witchcraft movie." Well, yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of ego in there and irresponsible youth. the kinds of spells that they were interested in, but also some pretty inaccurate stuff, like you only have one element that you can be good at, so they had to have one person for each element, which is absurd when
Right,
it
and
comes to
not
actual
only
magic.
that, it's misleading to the point where a person might injure themselves if they followed those practices, because you need complete balance among the elements. Aiming yourself at one element, heading that direction, is basically going to, if you continue it for long term, it will lead to the death of your body, because you'll be depriving yourself of those other things you need. I mean, it's a, you know,
Also, your
in a way,
personality will get all
well,
skewed.
short term, it'll seem like you're getting real powerful in the one sense, but you get totally overbalanced, and then it'll trickle away, and you'll be completely powerless. Yeah, it's a short term thing. It's like making a suicide run or something. It may work and be incredibly powerful, but you're gone after it.
So
So not
Sundrop says
recommended.
apparently the masked magician does stage magic wearing a creepy mask. Some of his magic creeps me out, but I love it. He also has behind the scenes videos, so you know it's not real. Seems real though, it's very interesting. Cool. Taylor says, I feel the same. I'm rewatching The Coven from American Horror Series. My perspective on it is different than before. Well, yeah, things change as far as what we understand and what's going on and what we're interested in, too. I mean, life experience and perspective and so forth definitely shifts. I'm sure people have experienced where you buy a book and you think it's going to be really interesting and then you don't like it at all. And then 10 years later, you find the book in your library and you're like, why did I buy this? I don't remember. And then you start reading it, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this really makes sense because you've had 10 more years of experience. That's the foundation for understanding what's in the book.
Unless you find it's a really old book on Sekhmet that's like.
We don't want to get into that.
Sorry. The book is bad. It's a bad.
It's a bad book.
Yeah.
I've alluded to the fact that I found a book that was really bad and I didn't like it, and I've looked at it over the years several times, and I still don't like it the same for the same reason. So I'm finally going to get rid of the book. So I stopped finding it and thinking, oh, this would be so interesting, because it's false advertising on the cover. So Beth says, oh, yeah, Beth says, hi everyone, I just woke up from a nap. Well, hi Beth. Thank you for being awake. Sheila says, what about fiction books, Darkover series? Well, yeah, the Darkover series actually helped me quite a bit. That's the Marion Zimmer Bradley Darkover series, if I'm correct. She gave me all kinds of ideas on how to learn how to control my abilities, because there was nothing at the time that talked about, there were no exercises or anything to do to try and control telepathy and empathy and and all that other stuff that I have in more than adequate amounts. Yeah, so I found them interesting. I was disappointed to find out later on in her career that she was an abusive parent to her daughter, but it still was an important series of books for me. A lot of science fiction actually helped me out to figure things, like just give me notions and ideas, and my brain starts working, and I'm like, well, I could do that. How could I do that? Let me think. Oh yeah, here's a way. Sheila says yes. Yes. And that's the thing is, I wish I could remember the other movie. You can see the people that are in it. It was just a very delightful little thing. Different. I'll look it up and try and post it. I know I have it on one of my saved lists on one of the streaming services we're in. But yeah. So that's the thing. It's I like some of the movies about the gods and goddesses. I like the MCU and some of the DC characters. They're entertainment and they're fun and interesting, and they give you all kinds of notions and ideas and so forth.
It's not really about magic. It's sort of science fiction magic, but it's getting made into series, one of my favorites, was Stephen Colbert, and apparently it was John or R.R. Martin's.
George R.R. Martin's helping.
George R.R. Martin's favorite series. It's the Chronicles of Amber, Nine Princes of Amber.
Who knows when that's going to come out, though, because the actors are still on strike.
Yeah. But the books just like blew me away. I loved them. So that's my favorite series of all time, science fiction, magical, whatever. My favorite series of all times, and now it's getting made into a series I can watch on TV. So
he's looking forward to it.
I'm ecstatic about that, yes.
So Sheila says The Good Witch. Yes, The Good Witch is about actual magic, but it's sometimes boring. Because, yeah, I like the fact that they made it, and I think it's awesome that it's still on, and I still watch it from time to time. But yeah, it's a good one for people to watch who want to know what real magic is like, and how it's not like all thunderstorms and lightning and whatnot all the time, so... Pamela says, I liked practical magic. Yep, me too. Beth says, oh my, it's such a challenge having a baby with going through puberty in the house. Thank goodness it's over. Talk about chaos even when you're guiding them. Yes. My Little Pony says, I believe magic is real. Yes, it is.
So do we all.
Ruth says, oh my God, love books, that book. My Little Pony says, I practice chaos magic. Well, that's wonderful. I don't, but, everyone is different. I have more structure in my magic, I think, than chaos magic has.
Well, and plus there's just 10 zillion versions you got to choose.
Well, yeah.
Choose from among them because there's so many different stuff. And
what fits for you?
A.O. Spare's stuff is interesting, and that's where the chaos magic derived from. But yeah, it's not really.
Our style.
I don't have anything bad to say about it or anything like that. It just hasn't been my style.
Beth says, I meant a young witch note to self, do not text when you're not awake yet. Okay. That's a good, I think, thing in general. It's also a good idea not to text when you're drunk. My daughter has posted to Facebook on occasion, not anymore, thank goodness, when she was drunk. And it was not good. It was very, very bad. And she was very embarrassed by what she posted. But yes, being cognizant of what you're doing is usually the best idea. You know what's happening when you're doing it, at least. If there's consequences, at least you were in the know at the time. And it wasn't just some random crazy consequence that... Mary says, hi, Siofra and Ian, glad to be here. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
We're having fun talking about Halloween and upcoming shows and whatnot. Sundrop says, speaking of My Little Pony, when I was little, I was playing with her, left her in the bathroom on the shelf, went back to get her, and she was gone. I never found her again. My parents don't know what happened to her. Well, I always imagine when things like that happen that there's a random moving tiny black hole that kind of wanders through and just sort of sucks things away and to another alternate reality and you never see them again.
I think I have one that follows me around.
Yes. He has dropped something on the floor at his feet and it has vanished from the face of the earth, never to be found again. On more than one occasion. Every so often I get something sent back, so you never know.
Even once on a hardwood floor, so it's like hard to miss on a hardwood floor,
yep.
You know?
I've had a set of keys come back twice. I lost them. The first time I lost them, I was living in a small cabin up in the Kispioks. That was where the cedar tree was. And I had purchased a unicorn keychain holder, like decoration. And I believed wholeheartedly that if you had a unicorn on your keychain, you could not lose your keys. It was like That was it. And then when my keys went missing, I wouldn't believe that my keys were gone because I had a unicorn on my keychain. So they had to be there. And I knew they had to be in my coat pocket because that's where I put them. Every morning when I put on my coat, I put my hand in the coat pocket to get those keys. And a month or so after that happened, I put my hand in that same pocket and the keys were in it. So that was the first time. And the second time, I lost the keys when I moved from the Kispiox to Terrace, British Columbia. And I'd already moved into a new house with my daughter. We'd unpacked all of our boxes. We were sitting in the living room watching television, and my keys appeared in the air at my eye level in front of us and dropped on the floor. So that was pretty exciting. And I looked at my daughter. I said, "Did you see that?" She said, "Yeah, you mean your keys coming out of the air and falling on the floor?" I saw that. I'm like, okay, not crazy. And there were my keys on the floor. And so, stuff like that can happen. There have been a few other instances too, but those were the two big ones. We had someone who was in our group who had lost a pentagram that she had had for years. And she had lost it for like 7 years or so when we met her. And after we started working together one day, she looked underneath her bed, under the floor, and found that pentagram in the middle of the floor on the rug under her bed. And she has no clue how that came to be because she had moved several times. And she was pretty sure that it had never been there before, so she was very happy to get it back. You never know. So Mary says, I see someone practicing chaos magic. I used to live in a communal house called Chaos Collective, and the story was someone did a chaos ritual there or something. I don't know if I recommend. Laugh out loud. Wondering about the person who practices chaos magic and what their attraction is to it and how it's working for them. I guess we'll find out. Shay says, hello, dear ones. So great to see you, hear you. Hi, Shay. Luel says, hello, I am here. How is your weekend going? Pretty good. Our tree was removed yesterday morning. And today we get to talk to you guys, so it's going really well.
Yep.
Sundrop says, I wonder what if I ever get swept into another reality. Would I survive? I don't know. One would hope so. And Shay says, I love that story about your keys. Yeah, it's the biggest manifestation accidental that I didn't know I was doing or didn't have anything to do with, as far as I know, that I've had. Sundrop says, I think other realities and universes are interesting. Yes, one hopes they have the right kind of air for us to breathe if we happen to stumble into one. I would think that would be a basic requirement if you're going to survive. Ava says, hi. Hi, Ava. Haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? Of course, I like to be practical, so I try not to get too involved in all the interesting possibilities that the universe might have out there if it makes me forget the one that I'm in. Ava says, good, I decided to join the live today, and so you did, and welcome. Any questions? We're having fun, as usual. My Little Pony says, I believe dreams are different realities. Mary says, grounding is nice, I think. I agree. And dreams are different realities in the sense that they don't exist in this one when you're awake, for sure. Luel says, we spent all day today on a beach, windy, chilly, and absolutely wonderful. Sundrop says, maybe some disappearances have to do with other realities. Maybe so. But if I disappear, I'm hoping that people don't assume I went to another reality and look really hard to find me in this one.
You better not go there without taking me.
Well, there's that. I can't go by myself. I'm not permitted.
That's
Not
right.
permitted. It's been edicted. Is that a word, edicted? An edict is a noun, so it's probably not. I was trying to turn some other noun into a verb the other day, and it was not working.
I don't know. I like that one. Addicted.
Yeah. Barry says, we will look for you, Siofra. Thank you. I had someone who apparently assumed I must live in Ireland, I guess because of my name. So I thought that was interesting. And yes, it is an Irish name. And yes, my family is from Ireland, but pretty sure I don't have any kind of an Irish accent. So I was kind of surprised. Sophia says, crystals disappear in a mysterious way. They do sometimes. Definitely. Yeah, in the books about Seth, in Seth Speaks and the Oversoul 7 and some of the other books that Jane Roberts wrote about the subject, the idea that reality, if you forget about the things that belong to you for long enough, they kind of disappear, always makes me curious when I can't find something I know I used to own and it's nowhere to be seen. But you never know. And Beth says, Siofra, I love your hair down. Thank you. Adi says, how can I create a thought form to manifest my desire?
Well, there are practices and things given, ways to do that, techniques. Barton mentioned some. There's a whole thing of making servitors. Your mileage may vary on instructions you find, though. If you want to be 100% about it, I trust Barton's. I don't know about a bunch of others aspects, but they're manifesting a thought form down. It depends on exactly what you're talking about too. It could be as simple as doing a spell for money, which might be like anointing a candle and burning it or something.
I mean, anytime you think about something, you're creating a thought form. And that thought form goes out and finds other things that are similar to it as far as the basics of thoughts is concerned.
Manifesting is related to like the earth element, bringing something down. So you might try to do an earth element thing. So it's kind of too broad of a question.
Well, I mean, I manifested a grant to fix our roof, but I had to work
awesome.
really hard to get it. I had to find a program and be made aware of it. Then I had to go through the physical process of applying for it, thinking I wasn't going to get it, but doing it anyway, and just like did what I had to do, and then was surprised when they actually gave us a grant. So sometimes manifesting things is not just about thinking about them, but it's about the doing of the things to get you to that point, to manifest it into physical reality. And that's kind of the way my manifestations work. Like the universe throws ideas out at me and notions and things like that and says, here's this thing, here's that thing, here's the other thing. And then if one goes like, oh, yeah, maybe that would work, and I start following it along, and then poof, I get what we need. So, yeah. Sundrop says, like my pony did, disappeared in a mysterious way into an alternate reality. Julia says, phew, at least I get here for about half. Grins. Hi, Julia. Odin says, well, those movies I mentioned, it was for their special effects, stories, and acting, and different atmosphere, not if they're exact witchy-wise, that is. Crystals are special beings. They are also sometimes accompanied by beings we can't see. Well, I know, movies are not reality, and that's probably a good thing.
Otherwise, it'd be documentaries, which
Would be different.
Siofra watches a lot of, but I'm not so much for the documentary.
Depends.
She watches a lot of crime ones.
Depends on the documentary.
True.
Desideradum says, just got in. Hi. The person who had the question about servitors might want to check out a book called The 40 Servants. Scott Brown says, did you always know you had abilities, or did you discover them over time? I was born this way, and then I had to figure out how to live this way and how to function and how to control who I was, and then how to shut them down so that I could survive, and then how to open them back up in a controlled environment. I don't know. Does that answer your question? Sundrop says, if my pony were to show up all of a sudden, I wouldn't know what to do or think. It's been over 30 years or so. Just wondering. It would be awesome. I would say open yourself up to the possibility. You never know. Heidi says, okay, so affirmations and visualizations creates thought forms? Thanks. No, thinking creates thought forms, and affirmations and visualizations make them stronger. You do it automatically all the time. Thought forms is not like a special thing. Using a thought form as a magical vehicle is different than just having a thought form. You feel something strongly about another person, if they're aware of those things and they can see it, they can see the thought you're sending to them and know exactly what you're thinking by what the thought form looks like and smells like. Hoping that's clarification. So Beth says, Scott Brown, I was born with mine, freaked my parents out at 2. My grandmother smiled, they knew. Yeah, my mom was freaked out too. But she really tried hard to accept me for who I was. But her main thing that she said whenever anything happened to me was, go to bed, go to sleep, and everything will be fine in the morning. Because then I'll forget about it, right? It's just like, boom. Desi says, also Damon Brand has a book about servitors, I believe, part of the Gallery of Magic series. Mary says, Siofra, since you always see spirits, do you see more when the veil is thin around Samhain, or is it the same for you? Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me, I think. Although I'm often more aware of it during the daytime this time of year. I mean, I can tell that it's thinner, but for me, the veil is always kind of thin. If I'm tired, it's really bad, though, because then I have less control. Diane says, strangely, I lost 2 of my healing crystals at different times in the Lake District. I hope they have found a good home. Maybe they have. Hopefully. Ava says, if I want to start working with the Fae, is there a way to hide offerings so that they can find them, but my parents can't? Because I'm a closeted witch, especially if it's like food or drink offerings. I don't know, find a place out in the woods where your parents don't go and put them out there? Or hang them from a tree? I don't know. I don't know enough about your parents to know what they might find or not find. Sundrop says, Ava, another closeted witch. Ava says, yes. As he says, I had a question last week I still can't quite formulate properly, but it's basically about cutting an etheric connection in a worst case scenario. Any thoughts?
Well, an etheric connection is the first thing that needs clarified. Are we talking like through the Akasha, or what are we talking about exactly by etheric?
Are we talking about your own connection, like to your body, or someone else's connection to their body, or your connection to someone else through the ether? Lula says, is it a good idea to do a spell on the 31st October? I'm sure there's not a bad idea. Most of the spell work that's done on Samhain has to do with the dead and ancestors and that kind of thing. Nothing wrong with doing a spell any day of the year, in my opinion. Summer says, okay, one more. Spells for loneliness or self-doubt. Well, that's called shadow work and therapy. And it's a part of that. The cup transformation spell that I have, ritual that I have a video on, is a good way to help transform some of that, recognize the feelings that you're having and trying to turn them into something that you want. So if you were trying to get rid of loneliness, you could put all your feelings of loneliness in the cup and then transform it into a sense of belonging to all life. So knowing you're not alone and try and drink that back in. Or self-doubt, you could put that all into the cup and transform it into confidence, discernment, or something else similar to that and drink that back in. Because basically those are things that are stuck in your unconscious. And that's one way of getting them out of your unconscious, into the conscious mind, acknowledging, accepting, then transforming and reversing, and turning that energy into something that's good for you instead of something that's stopping you from doing whatever it is you need to do. Angela says, blessings to Siofra and the chat. Hi, Angela. He says, I guess my question relates to haunted objects kind of thing. So you're trying to cut the etheric cords between a haunted object and the ghost or the person that might be stuck in the haunted object as a way of releasing the spirit of the thing that's stuck to it, I think is what you're talking about. We'll find out in a minute. My Little Pony I was born with chaos magic and I can talk to demons. I am still learning how to control it with my name is Godzilla. Okay. Ava says, I unfortunately don't have a woods near my house and they'd probably notice something in a tree since my yard is small. How about burying something in the ground? Do you have a garden where there's like bushes and like wood chips or something? Or you can dig it out a little bit and stick it under the chips and under a bush and then cover it back up? Because the fairies will know that it's there. Might be an idea. Or going to a local park and doing it there instead. Angela says, I could picture Samhain being good because ancestors would be so close, it'd be so fun. Yeah. My Little Pony says, which name is Godzilla? Yes, we got that. Desi says, Eva, hide your face offerings in the hole of a tree. Oh, Fae offerings. Pretty sure she doesn't mean face. Yes, hide your face in the hole of a tree. My Little Pony says, my witch name is Godzilla. Yes, yes. Welcome, Godzilla. But I'm going to call you My Little Pony because I can't remember everybody's name. I see the name on the screen, that's the one I use. Taylor says, would you all know about solar eclipses? There'll be one soon where I live. They're awesome and I love them very much. And it's a great time to get an experience of this one that's coming is not going to have the corona visible because it's just going to be the ring of fire. So this will be different than the full solar eclipse. But the full solar eclipse, being able to see the color of the sun's corona is just such a gift. It's so pure and white and the energy is just so amazing. It made me scream and cry for the whole time that I was watching it. I'm hoping to be able to see the one that's coming up because it'll be visible from my backyard. And we have our glasses, so we're ready, just in case. But basically, anytime there's a new moon, the moon is, between the sun and the earth. It's just that when there's an eclipse, you happen to be more in a direct line of sight between those other two celestial objects, and the moon is cutting off the view of the sun for a period of time. So it's not like it's a different new moon than any other new moon, in my opinion. And it depends on where you are on the planet, whether you're going to experience it or not. So, it's still got new moon energy. That's sort of how I think of it. Desrata says, oops, Fae offerings. Yeah. Sundrop says, My Little Pony, are you familiar with Cyberwitch? Scott Brown says, I have a hunch that my mom also had abilities, but my grandmother, I don't believe, was accepting and tried to beat it out of her, which caused her to have mental illness. I have only just discovered mine. I'm so sorry. That sounds like a terribly traumatic thing to have happened to your mother.
Yeah.
Ava says, none of my trees have holes. I'm thinking I could probably just sneak something in my room and hide it. As he says, Ava, the best place for the offerings is a natural place. Honestly, better not in your home. Ava says, that's a good idea. So maybe the thing about the bark. Angela says, get a flower box and plant flowers. Diane says, Lou, I did a protection spell in our woods on the 31st of October. I think it worked. And Angela says, and add fairy statues. Just say you're making a decorative guardian or garden. Ava says, yeah, I'd probably do the burying thing. That's a good idea. Okay. Whatever works. I mean, you have to think outside the box. If one thing doesn't work, come up with another. And, you can also put things down. You can put things in the water. You can charge up some water as a gift, of energy, and put a crystal in it to charge it up with a special amount of that energy or whatever. And then you can take that water out and you can pour it onto the ground or underneath a tree or something like that as an energetic gift and offering to the Fae who are in the yard. and no one would be able to see it because water goes into the ground and becomes invisible. But the fairies would know. That's another idea, just came out of nowhere. That's what I like, ideas popping out of nowhere. Desi says, Angela, prayer poems, yes. And Taylor says, cool, I'm glad you enjoy it. I also got some glasses for it. Summer says, laugh out loud, therapy, yes. Desi says, yes, releasing the spirit of the person or something worse. Yeah, I think that, okay, so when I had a situation where a living person was sending out negative energy and attaching it to another living person, when black cords coming out and connecting and sucking energy off of them, I put a shield around the person who was doing it and cut off their ability to connect with the other person. And when I did that, the other person dropped, like someone had cut their strings, which was interesting and very verifying of what I was seeing. But I'm thinking that that could work for an object. If you put a shield, an energetic shield around the object, then the thing that was attached to it wouldn't be able to get through to continue the connection, and the connection would be cut. So I'm thinking maybe that would work. It'd be worth a try. Summer says, thank you. Lewis said, thanks. Desi says, the temptation to hide my face in a tree is often. I love the idea of hiding my face in a tree. I used to have a tree in Santa Cruz that was a lightning struck tree, and it was hollowed out in the bottom, but still living up above. And it had this doorway, very natural doorway, and we used to use that, especially on full moon nights. And we would go up into the hills above Santa Cruz, and we would use that tree as the veil that we walked through to get to the other side, to get to the magical realm of moonlight and ritual and stuff like that we did, and it was quite fantastic. So trees can make a good one. Ava says, that's a great idea. Astra says, I made a little fairy crown for the fairies at my favorite trail for the Guardian. I don't know a whole lot. I hope they liked it. I like anything we try to do that we are trying to do as a nice gesture. They're not really easily offended, even though all the literature seems to say that they are. They're not. Not in my experience. Diane says, great idea about crystal water for the Fae, Siofra. Thank you. Ava says, like a flower crown? That is cool. I wish that I could have little experiences like that. My life is boring. No life is boring. Just have to look for the excitement. Shay says, have a good afternoon all. Till next time, blessed be. Blessed be Shay.
Thank you for being here.
Angela says, I dress dolls so you can get a Barbie and sew it some pretty nature-themed clothing and present it to the Fae. That's another possibility. There's a lot of potential. Little decorations and things like that they might like. Dropping some pretty little crystals in a little trail. Those, like the little bitty ones.
Things, yeah.
Ian has like a pouch of tiny little amethysts that we got. And, you could get something like that where they're so small they're almost invisible to the naked eye if you're standing up tall. And you could put those underneath a tree or whatever and bury them underneath the bark, and that would probably be fine. Ava says, I will be right back. Okay. Beth says, it takes no effort for me to absolutely fall in love with trees. I hug them, talk to them, and tell them how much I love and appreciate them. Feel the love. Yes. So Tracy says, any thoughts on encouraging, strengthening natural ability in children? Believing them when they start talking to you, and don't automatically try and shut them down, but don't feed into the fantasy, because children's minds are fantastical by nature. But it's like I've had a couple of children who've had some intense paranormal experiences, and in my in my experience with them, believing that something's happening and then giving them a tool to take care of it, like letting them know that nothing can hurt them, that they can tell things that are bothering them to go away and leave them alone, and they have to. Children will take those kinds of statements literally, and so be careful about how you say it. But there was one young girl who was being harassed by a spirit while we were there, and I was dealing with the spirit, and we actually were all watching her hair being pulled, and in front of us, which was pretty cool, interesting for us, not for her, but for us. And I told her to tell them to stop that, you say, stop that, leave me alone. And she did. And I said, and now go to sleep. She went to sleep like that. She just instantly went to sleep. I was like, wow, okay. That was a powerful voice I had that day. But think about, practical things. And with the paranormal stuff, if there's something going on, find an image that works for them. Like if they're into unicorns or they're into pizza, or it doesn't matter what it is, something that they're familiar with that they like and it's easy for them to visualize. They can use that to make a shield around themselves or between them and whatever it is that's bothering them, and try to explain what it is that they're experiencing. When I was young, my father would send me messages telepathically on a regular basis, and this was a way to prove to my mother, apparently, that he could do this and that I could receive him. So, I would just tell her, Daddy says to set a place for dinner. He's coming home. And she would go like, no, he's not scheduled to come back. His shift's going to be out for another week, and don't want to disappoint you. And my father would come home and say, where's my dinner? I told her to tell you I was coming home. So we had like these real world experiences that were in my mother's face on a regular basis, that made her have to accept the fact that I was different. And so she started to believe me when I told her stuff. But yeah, it so depends on the child. With my memories of past lives and things, I was probably a lot more precocious than most children, because I remembered being here before and I had this understanding of things that I shouldn't, in general terms, understand for my age. So it's going to depend on the kid. Sundrop says, when I was little, I loved watching the Smurfs and watching Papa Smurf and Gargamel do their magic. I used to wish they were real. Yeah. Angela says, I have a favorite tree who loves hugs. Trees are so loving. They're very accepting. Mary says, I did a ritual in 2017 on Samhain to commit to this path, and it worked. I'm still on the path. And so it's kind of my anniversary. So it's actually awesome. It's, called the Witch's New Year, too. So it's all of our anniversary for the whole year, starting thing over. But yay, that's a good thing. As he says, I offer my good neighbors, Fae folk, Icelandic spring water charged with rainbows I have from crystals in my window. Ooh, I like that. That's another good water charging. Tracy says, thank you, Siofra. You're welcome. Beth says, yes, my best friend's daughter and my daughters are naturally magic like us. We would step in if needed, but nurtured their abilities in a responsible way. Children are very open to learning new things, so, you tell them this is how it works, they're going to believe you. That's one of the things about being a responsible parent. As he says, I kind of get the feeling they don't like plastic. Well, they probably can't really feel plastic in particular. Asta says, I'm still nervous about fairies. I see their sparkly energy and veiled subtle energy, but a sparkly rippling being with spinning lights came out of the wall. I just about died. Well, it's always startling when you see something real that's not supposed to exist.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your brain crashes in on itself because you've got this firmly held belief that this is the way reality is, and there are certain things that happen in it and certain things that don't. And then you have the thing that doesn't happen in it happen in front of you, and they sort of clash together, and then you have to rearrange your thinking about what reality truly is, and it's never comfortable. Astra says, but sometimes I'm not afraid and I'll dance or sing and watch their energy spin. It's kind of cute. It is. I have mixed feelings because I have PTSD, but I also feel more grounded and excited about life since this started, even though it scared me a lot when I first noticed. Well, it sort of gives you hope that there's more to the universe than just what we've been told. That out of there. I don't need a Facebook notification at the moment. And yeah, there's more out there than we don't know than there is that we do know, and
Yeah,
so
well,
I find that exciting and interesting. And
thing to remember is that a lot of the fear just about things like that just comes from the fact that it's unknown, and a lot of times once you've had
unexpected.
several experiences and haven't had anything bad happen, then those fears will diminish.
Kind of like all the stuff that I saw when I was up at the cabin. I was amazed at how long that took to tell everybody about the things that I saw up at the cabin. But the surprising thing is that for me is that these things that have been happening is like not scaring me. It's definitely interesting. Astra says, yes, that's true. And Desi says, Astra, I had a visitation like that after my service dog passed away. I was shattered on about every level. Their influence was good, intensely positive, and I'm grateful for that. And those are the kinds of experiences that transform your life. They have such a huge impact on such a deep level, and they're so undeniable. It's yeah, it is wonderful. Like when the tree reached out and hugged me to comfort me, like I've talked about before. It's like knowing you're not alone because you've experienced other that you didn't know was there is still there and paying attention, and it's part of everything. Mary says, I have to watch your cabin video. Well, expect to be entertained. I saw a lot of stuff when I was there. It says, you'll get through the fear about fairies. We're programmed not to believe. Once you break that, you'll say, hi, sweetheart, how are you today? Esther said, yeah, this happened after my cat died. I have never cried so hard in my life. I love that cat. Yeah, and I think that, being in pain and grief, it makes us more vulnerable and open. Because certainly I was crying a lot when the tree reached out and I felt it. I was, in a very devastated place emotionally and spiritually at the time. And I think they feel that part of us strongly. And when we're in that state, we're more open and vulnerable, like I said. So, and then it's more of an impact too, because it's so different from how you're feeling. It's a sort of a shock to your system. It's like, what? How can this be? I feel like this. This can't be happening. Desi says, do-it-yourself rainbows are easier to catch.
Yep.
Astra says, now I have a new cat and he chases the fairy lights. Well, that's awesome. Cool. Way to go.
I'm all for do-it-yourself things, especially rainbows.
Well, we have the peephole in our front door makes a circle rainbow on our wall every so often. It startles us. We're like, what? What is that? We're like, oh yeah, that's right. The sun is just at the right angle going through that peephole. It's like making a rainbow on the wall. Like, all right. And my granddaughter discovered why you don't want reflected sunlight in the wrong spot. She actually started her car on fire accidentally with a mirror, where the sun hit the mirror at just the right angle and bounced into the upholstery on her door. And fortunately, she has the gift in the family. As she was leaving her car in the parking lot, an instinct says, go back to your car now. And she went back to find smoke coming out of her car. So she put the fire out and figured out what caused it and covered up the mirror so that wouldn't happen again. But that whole thing about why you wrap a crystal ball, why you cover your crystal ball in a cloth, not necessarily keep the energy in, but to keep the sunlight out so you don't burn your house down when you're gone. That's like very practical. Moonchild says, what would you say when leaving an offering for the Fae? Is there anything specific? I'd like to do this in my garden. I just talk to them as I would to anything just say, hey, this is for you guys. I really appreciate what you do, and I just wanted to honor that.
Yeah, it's less important what you say and more important the feeling you have when you say it, when you give them the offering and stuff, because that's what they'll
They,
get. Yeah,
yeah, they
get
feel
it from the heart.
what's in your heart. Desi says, Astra, that might be why they came. Healing intense grief. Nature, spirits, and animals really jive. They may have been sent by your cat, not your car. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that they care about us like they care about everything else that's alive. So, and the thing is that, the Fae are all across the planet. They're not just in Ireland. Um, there's different kinds of fae everywhere. There are stories in every culture about little people and spirit beings and so forth. And most of them have been contaminated by missionary folk who've gone in and changed the stories to reflect their religious biases against anything supernatural, and it always having to be bad. But the stories are there, and if you can find the stories from before that kind of stuff took place, you have a better idea of what the nature of those beings might actually be, I think. But just like there's birds across the entire planet, every part of the planet has birds. Even the Antarctic has got birds. Maybe they don't fly, but they're still birds. But they're just all different. And we a lot of times people get very narrow, focused interpretation and that kind of thing when it comes to the Fae folk, I think. Astra says, "Thank you, Desi." Maybe, yeah. I think that knowing your intentions and being a genuine person is really your biggest asset. And when it comes to spirit beings, gods, goddesses, everything that's
Yeah,
like that out there.
Treat them with respect.
Yeah.
Don't take that old attitude like the old grimoires have or the old magicians have.
I am going to send you to the ninth circle of hell if you don't do what I say. Oh, really? Okay, I'm just waiting for you to make that one fatal mistake where you said that if that didn't happen, I could get you, and then I'm going to get you, and I'm going to get you good. Yeah. Don't set up those kind of confrontations with spirits, because they have the endless patience to find out when you're making that mistake. Come and get you.
It's just rude, and if you're going to be rude to them, they're going to be rude back. I mean, it's like...
Yeah. Astra says, after this experience, my clairvoyance that was in denial about opened up and I started seeing spirits everywhere. It freaked me out. But now I feel safer. But I think fairies and spirits are in everyone's home. Well, certainly, they're in the air. And you have air in your house, so. Moonchild says, my husband saw a blue, almost luminous mist last week about 10 feet off the ground. It moved slowly, and within seconds, it had gone. This was in the countryside in Scotland. Any idea what it could have been? Sounds like a magic mist to me. We had one of those happen to us, where suddenly a mystic fog came out of nowhere, and it felt different. It's kind of like an alternate reality kind of pocket, I think, where spirit and physical reality are merged closer together. There's less distance between them. Could have also been a manifestation of a specific type of being. Could be he was just seeing that spirit as a blue mist, but I don't know what kind. Sounds cool. Astra says, laugh out loud. Oh, hell no, I ain't bullying any spirits. Sundrop says, maybe Fae around me and I don't know. Yeah. There could be Fae around you and you don't know. I mean, a lot of times I think, people see them out of the corner of their eyes on a regular basis and then dismiss it as a trick of the light, or, the thing that they see movement out of the corner of their eye and they turn and look and there's nothing there. They convince themselves that there wasn't anything there to start with. In reality, usually there is actually something there. And the farther you are from the center of your vision, the less control you have over what your brain allows you to see. Because the brain filters things out. And so the peripheral vision has got less conscious mental brain filters. So, and it will let in what you have decided is erroneous information and not accurate stuff on the edges where it won't let it in front of you. Which is why when you turn to look at it, it's not there. It's not that it's not there. It's just that you can no longer see it because your brain says, that's not important information. We don't need to see that. It's erroneous. And we've been told that that doesn't exist and it's not something they want to hear. So
Yeah, that's one thing practice helps with. You stop automatically rejecting certain things. You start finding out. Well, anyway, you said that.
yes. The Moonchild said, thank you. Sundrop says, yes. Astra says, I try to be respectful because I don't know them well, and it's best to treat them like you would a human, even though they probably don't think like me. This is true. Being respectful is always a good idea. You respect a wild animal, and you respect its instincts and its lair and its protective space and everything else, or you get eaten. So, respect, definitely good. Astra says, yep, I think you're right. People see them and tend to talk themselves out of what they saw. As he says, thank you, Siofra, for advice on the disenlivening haunted objects. Yeah, let me know how that goes, because I'm thinking, like, if that worked with a living person, and I know that that worked, that could be a clue to helping with something like that. That was a very strange experience when I had it. Talking about that last week with somebody. It's like a very strange thing, but talk about instant verification that what I saw was real and what I did worked and had an effect in the living world, because I had absolutely zero expectation that doing that was going to make the poor woman pass out and fall on the ground. They had to carry her out. That was at a medicine wheel. She was helping to place the medicine wheel at the beginning of the weekend. And I noticed her getting kind of confused and stuff. And that's why I noticed this guy, and he was making some weird noises and doing strange breathing stuff, which made me look at him even more. And then I saw what I saw. And, I'm glad I could see that, because I knew something bad was happening, and I was able to do something to intervene, even though I didn't know this person at all. Because, to me, that's wrong. It seemed pretty clearly it was bad. Julia says, ads to get eaten, part of Siofra's advice. For you, barbecue crispy and tastes great with ketchup. Thank you. Always like food. We just had some apple pie and non-dairy chocolate ice cream that was quite tasty. And it wasn't too sweet of an apple pie, so that was kind of nice. Eating after magic is always a good idea. It helps you ground. Grounding is very important. And this whole process of what we're going through is an experiment, because, we're all trying to work it out as we go along. And we often change our minds as we get older and get more experience. What works for us now may not work for us in 15 or 20 years. Or we may have different interests and our energy has shifted to do a different kind of magic or having newer experiences. I think that's one of the things that helps to keep us young. Tammy says, thank you. Informative as always. Have a great week. Thank you, Tammy. As he says, Astra Illuna, learning about the concept of our spiritual dominion might relieve some of that fear and shock of seeing paranormal beings. Julie says, oh, love that would love some non-dairy, so I don't have to always worry about gastric issues. Loves me some ice cream. Yes, and it's a good brand. We like it very much. Ray says, how is your rabbit and crows? And I love apple pie. Well, we are rearranging our house to train the rabbit to not go to the bathroom everywhere. So we're working on that. And the crows were not happy about the tree because they came and watched us take it down. But they were quite happy with the peanuts that we gave them this morning. So apparently they have forgiven us for that. And Beth says, if you're doing good energy work, whether it be magic or healing someone afterwards, you will want a good meal. Yes, whether by magic. Astra says, do you think Christians mistake fairies for angels? I used to be a Christian at a charismatic church, and they called all orbs and sparkly energies angels. Could be, but I saw both. I saw both angels and fairies, and they were different when I saw them. But that doesn't mean that Christians might not see them and assume.
Right.
Ava says, I'm back. I have a question. Can Fae inhabit houseplants or choose to live in a houseplant? Yeah, absolutely. I had one that came into my house once, but it didn't stay. It wanted to go back to the flower shop it was from because there were more plants. As he says, I don't have any cases with haunted objects right now, just gathering tools. Good. It's always good to have something in your tool belt in case you need it. One of the things I like about experience. It really helps. Astra says, I don't think many of them know what these beings are because they think in terms of black and white, either angel or devil. I think it's way more nuanced and there are many types of beings. Absolutely. And I don't think of angels as Christian only at all. I think angels exist beyond all religion and that they're just a group of beings and that is what they look like. And as usual, we like to label things and put them in boxes that make them easier for us to deal with and make us think that we actually know what we're doing. So, on that note, I have to go by because it's been past our hour and a half by just a little bit. If it says, oh wow, I always imagined them only living outside. Nope, not necessarily. But this has been a great conversation, as usual. We enjoy interacting with people. It always goes by fast once we get it rolling. Getting it rolling sometimes takes a while, but once we get it going, things go by really well. So Aster says, yep, exactly. Desi says, thank you, everyone. Yes, and blessed be to all of you, and hope you have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next week. And Ian has a video he's going to be putting out in the next couple of days, so we can have more questions. So, yes. Talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.
Bye.